Hey, happy Wednesday. So we know for Wednesday we have our first one is a whole number addition. And so we have our multi-digits. So we are going to round up. So I'm going to have 300 plus I'm going to round this one down to 350 because it's just going to be easier numbers to work with. When I combine these two, I get 650. I know that because I have a 5 in the tens, nothing in the tens here, and I have a 3 and a 3 in my hundreds. So that just goes here. So remember, this is my estimate. I know I rounded up here. I rounded down a little here. So 650 should actually be pretty close to our actual answer. Okay, so we're going to write our actual problem. I'm going to back this up a little. And so we're going to have our 298 on top plus our 352. Notice I line up my tens, my ones, my hundreds. I'm going to start on the right. So 8 plus 2 is 10. So 0, carry my 1. 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 plus 5 is 15. So I put my 5, carry my 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. So there is my actual answer. And check that out. Our estimate is the actual answer. Okay, so our second problem is going to be our decimal division, right? So on this problem, I'm going to take a look to make sure that I look at it to make sense. I have 525 and 8 tenths minus 4 and 31 hundredths. When I take a peek here, I'm just going to kind of do this, right? I'm going to round this up, right? Sorry, I hope you can see. This 0.8 makes this round up. And because these are easier numbers, at least I think, I'm going to actually keep it this way. So this one I'm going to round down. When I have it something like this, 526 minus 4, I really hope that you're able to do that. Because this 5 and the 2, right, the 500 and the 20 stays the same. It's my here and the ones that switch. I had 6, I'm going to take 4 away. I should end up with 2. So my estimate should be somewhere around 522. And notice when I'm actually doing that, when I make sense of this problem, I'm not taking much away from what I started with. Okay, so I rewrote my problem, and I forgot to bring that down. I wrote the 0 that I put in as my placeholder in green, so you can see what I added. Because when I do this problem, remember this is 8 tenths, and this is 31 hundredths. I needed my place value holder. Remember, whenever we have a decimal, I could keep adding zeros. It does not change the value of that number, okay? All right, so when I'm subtracting, right, I'm always going to go top to bottom. If I have 0, I cannot take 1 away. Don't make it 1 minus 0. Because if I have 0 and I'm taking 1 away, that's going to give me a negative 1. So I need to borrow. So we go next door. I get a 7. This becomes 10. 10 minus 1 is 9. 7 minus 3 is 4. If I have 5 and I take 4 away, I get 1. And because there's nothing here, basically I keep the same. So my final answer is 521 and 49 hundredths, which is really, really close to my original estimate of 522. So my estimate and my answer, they both, well, my answer, sorry, makes sense based on my estimate. Okay, so I have my fractions. Remember, whenever I'm talking about fractions, I always need a common denominator. But before I get there, I need to make sense to get an estimate, right? So 10 over 14, I know half of 14 is 7. So I know I'm more than half. So I'm closer to, we're going to call this because we're going to use 0, half, and 1, just like we did when we were in class. So I'm actually a little bit closer to my 1, right? So this is like 1 minus half of 7 is 3.5. So this is closer to half. So 1 minus half, I should get somewhere around 1/2 as my answer, okay? Now we know I'm using my 7s and my 14s, so it's not necessarily going to say 1/2. But what I need is that my numerator is half of whatever my denominator is, right? If I take my denominator divided by 2, I'll get my numerator, okay? So I know it's going to be pretty close to 1/2. So on this one, I need a common denominator. It just so happens again, same as yesterday, 7 is a factor of 14, which is fantastic because that means this fraction stays the same because I'm going to make this into 14ths. This one I'm going to change to 14ths, but in order to do that, I'm going to do times 2 times 2. Remember, I'm going to take a look when I'm finding my common denominator. So when I did 7 times 2, I got 14. 4 times 2 gave me 8. So I'm kind of writing in there. Sorry, I didn't switch my marker. 10 minus 8, because once I have my denominator the same, that stays at 14, because I was looking for that size piece. And 10 minus 8 gives me 2. Okay, so this is the big thing about fractions, right? We always need the simplest form. So my cue here that this is not in simple form is because this is an even number and this number in the ones is even, which means, I'm going to do this in green so you see what I'm doing, okay? Just like we talked about. I am going to divide by 2 over 2. This is how I simplify, right? And when I divide by 2 over 2, and again, I just go across. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1, and 14 divided by 2 gives me 7. So my final answer, is 1/7. Okay, our final problem of the day is our division. Okay, remember, don't freak out, guys. All right, so if I took my 4 and I did times 100, I get 400. Well, 272 is less than 400. So I know this answer is not going to be on top here, is not going to be 100. However, half of 400 is 200. So I know I'm going to have at least 50 groups of 4. And then when I'm taking a look, that'd be 200. Then I have like the 7. I know that my answer is going to be more than 50, right? So if I did 4 times 6, I would get 24, right? And then I did put a 0 on the end. So I know I'm going to have at least 60 groups, right? Because that'd be 240. So if I'm taking a look and I'm looking in my hundreds, right, I know that I'm going to have at least 6 groups. When I do 4 times 7, and I'm going to add a 0 on this. Here, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Right over here. 4 times 70, right? I'm going to do the glare. Sorry, everyone. 4 times 7 gives me 28. And I'm going to put a 0 on the end of it. So I know I can't have 70. However, if I do 4 times 60, I get 240. So I know I'm farther away on that. So I'm closer to the 70. So this is going to be, the answer to this problem is going to be pretty close to 70. Okay, that's what I was doing on that. Okay, so let's do the actual division. Sorry, everybody. I'm trying to work with the lights so you can still see it. I'm not going to glare. Okay, so when I'm in here, I have 2. I cannot make a group of 4. So I need to use the 27. Just like we talked about, my multiple of 4, remember that's going to be in the middle part of it, is going to be 6. Because when I look down my column for 4, the number that gets me closest to 27 without going over is going to be 24. When I move over to the side, that's 6 groups. So I was pointing up here, that's 6 groups. 4 times 6 gives me 24. So then I'm going to subtract, right? We're using our letters here to help subtract. 7 minus 4 gives me 3. 3 is smaller than 4, so that's the right number of groups. And I'm going to bring down my 2. Now I'm taking my 32 and I'm dividing that up into groups of 4. Okay, so I'm going to end up with 8 groups because 4 times 8 is 32. So my final answer should be 68. I hope you're doing well with this. Let me know if you have any questions.